If you're watching this channel, it's because you don't enjoy watching the world squander what Christendom built, but you want to do your part. And chances are you've heard me mention a great means by doing just that. Email made by and for Catholics. Check out fidei.email. That's FIDEI.email. Built for Catholic individuals, families, organizations, and groups. They're private, secure, and of course, they're Catholic. And they're offering 2 months off on your first year for an annual subscription if you enter the coupon code Return to Tradition without spaces. That's the name of this channel, without spaces, at checkout. Last December, I covered a story that was very unfortunate. It was the melting down of the Coalition for Canceled Priests. There's really no other way to describe what has happened there. You saw Father John Lavell and a few other priests were suddenly removed from key positions in the coalition. You saw a back and forth at that time between Father Lavell, Father James Altman, and others. Father Lavell was one of the founding priests for the coalition, and he sat on the board, and he was eventually removed from various key positions. In the aftermath of that, you saw Father James Altman release what I would characterize as his rather typically blunt and forceful kind of response. Say what you want about Father Altman, he doesn't typically mince words, and that's usually a very good thing. Unfortunately, I don't know if that actually helped in this case, because what we have seen is, while the Coalition for Canceled Priests still exists, you now have an internal division in that organization, with some of its founding members essentially canceled. Whether or not it was legitimate or not is still something that you will have to decide for yourself. But now we have an interesting series of updates. The report of a priest named Father Duval, and he had submitted his resignation from a key post in the Coalition for Canceled Priests, and he has issued 2 very short letters on this. I was actually included in the communication on this because I think I might be the only one covering this. So before we go into this, please pray for every priest involved, for the coalition, because they do important work, for the new organizations that are sprouting up that are essentially competing with them, because there are a great number of priests being removed from active ministry for unjust reasons. And as always, as a word of caution here, whenever you hear a report in the news of a priest who has been, quote, canceled by the diocese, do not necessarily jump to conclusions that the priest was canceled for legitimate or illegitimate reasons, because there are plenty of times where a priest has been removed from active ministry, and it made the media in a very big way, but it was actually legitimate. We just have to go back in time, unfortunately, to the whole mess in Boston in 2003 and 2004 to see plenty of examples of that, unfortunately. We're going to go into some detail here, and the first thing I want to do is give you some context to refresh the memory, because we're now talking almost 2 months ago, when in early December, pre-fiducia supplicans, this happened, the initial part of this. And I'm only now getting to the follow-up, unfortunately, because I've had these letters from the priest for a few days now, but unfortunately, Cardinal Fernandez has been dominating the news long after his diabolical documents had made the news. So first, for a brief refresher, we go to a statement from Father John Lavell posted on December 4th, 2023. It's long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he basically said that this past August, here's from his letter, quote, "Unfortunately, this past August, I was blindsided by the Coalition's board of directors when I was suspended without pay. I asked the board for specifics, but was only given vague and generic reasons. The board's lack of detail and transparency was particularly surprising, as each member undertook a duty to preserve and defend the Coalition's core mission of assisting canceled priests. Shortly after my suspension, I retained legal counsel, and we tried to work with the board of directors to mediate a resolution. The board refused mediation and further refused to provide me with any details about the reason for my suspension. On October 2nd past, my attorney received word that the board had hired a priest of the Diocese of Saginaw to conduct a formal investigation. I was very happy to hear that an investigation would be undertaken. Though the Coalition has a very talented and experienced in-house investigator, I looked forward to a full and fair investigation. An investigation would provide me with both an idea of the allegations against me, as well as an opportunity to show my innocence, loyalty, and fidelity to the Church and the Coalition." End quote. The letter goes on, as you might expect. The aftermath of this was, of course, Father Altman saying that Father John Lavell was not actually qualified to be on a board of directors of this kind, or even to have key positions in a nonprofit of this kind. And he then use his own qualifications for these kinds of things as an example of what is needed to operate an organization like the Coalition for Canceled Priests. Whether that's true or not, I will let you decide, but on the 5th of January, another letter was submitted, and this was from Father Scott Duval, who was the priestly assistance coordinator and property manager for the Coalition for Canceled Priests. One of the disputed points here is the fact that Father Lavell had been residing in property for the Coalition for Canceled Priests, and that had become a sort of point of contention in these arguments. And so now I have 2 letters from him, both very short. He has resigned his post for the Coalition for Canceled Priests, citing the treatment of Father Lavell and some other things. Worth noting here is I did reach out to the Coalition for Canceled Priests for confirmation and a response. All they would do is confirm that Father Duval had actually resigned, and they would not give any kind of a statement beyond that. So I did reach out to them, and if they want to issue another statement, if they would like to respond at this point, please do so. I want both sides of this out there. We need the truth on these things, of course. So, dated the 5th of January, from Father Scott Duval to the Board of Directors for the Coalition for Canceled Priests. Quote, as you have changed the core mission of the Coalition and refuse ongoing assistance to needy priests and have limited assistance to emergency needs, I cannot support your actions. As I have put forth recommendations to approve newly approved priests, and weeks have gone by with no vote taken, I only understand this as you are not serious about the mission of the Coalition. As I have been forced to write recurring emails asking for further assistance for priests, which I had approved on a particular date, it has taken weeks and weeks for any action of support to occur. As these changes have allowed a spirit of negativity into the Coalition, it has become a hostile work environment, and I do not feel supported in my dedication to serve canceled priests. As you have abandoned actively promoting the Coalition and searching out priests, no meet and greets to spur on support and donations. In addition, the Coalition's social media not mentioned support of canceled priests for months and months. I cannot support your methods. As you have removed the face and voice of the Coalition, that would be Father Lavell, the priests no longer have a public advocate. As you are allowing 2, if not 3, 501c3s and or LLCs to siphon off funds to support their companies, I find this to be unethical. The very funds donated by the people of God to support canceled priests. The president of the Coalition has openly threatened legal action against priests and faithful Catholics who do not agree with his actions. The vice president of the Coalition has publicly declared himself to be a sedevacantist. That would be Father Altman there. No practicing Catholic can allow themselves to be directed by such a person. In addition, that same vice president openly threatens his brother priests because they hold views and opinions different than his. His ranting diatribe shared on social media was an embarrassment to the priests and caused scandal to the faithful. At this time, I declare myself to be a whistleblower and will, when asked, share these concerns and knowledge. As of this date and time, I resign my position as priestly assistance coordinator and property manager for the rectory in Indiana. End quote. So that is the first letter from Father Duval. What he's alleging here is, of course, unethical behavior and incompetence on the part of the Coalition for Canceled Priests. But also, I will disagree with him on one part here. I know I always hit this. Denying that Francis is the Pope and that Benedict was the real Pope is not being a sedevacantist. That is a formally defined position by people who are sedevacantists. They typically don't think any of the popes from 1958 onward were real popes. They all believe them to be anti-pope pretenders. That's what a sedevacantist is. And until I hear Father Altman say he didn't believe Benedict XVI was actually pope and that John Paul II wasn't actually pope, I'm going to use a different term to describe them. I know that's nitpicky, but I'm not going to budge on that position because it is a formally defined position. It would be like calling every person who believes in a Republican form of government a Republican, which is not accurate. Now here's the follow-up letter from Father Duval. It's actually dated earlier, January 2nd, 2024. I was given these in mid to the late part of the middle part of January. Again, Cardinal Fernandez's antics sort of delayed things on getting these out there. But here he says, here's more like moral reasons for his resignation. So, from his 2nd of January letter, quote, In Catholic moral theology, justice is a quality or habit which perfects the will and inclines it to render to each and to all what belongs to them. The object of the virtue of justice is the other person's rights, whether natural or bestowed by church or state. Whether you realize this or not, you have been pawns in a constructed takeover. Within this, you have made homeless a verified cancel priest during the winter months. Surely within your very souls, one of you should have had the moral fortitude to express concern about this and strive to construct a different ending to this very suspicious turn of events. So to right this wrongdoing and to make sure you follow the promise of assisting cancel priests, I have consulted a tenants' rights attorney in Indiana, and he was appalled at your course of action. So in my capacity as agent for the coalition through being duly appointed property manager for the rectory in Indiana, on December 30th, 2023, I signed a lease with Father John Lavell, which he attached. You want to talk about living your Catholic faith? Do it now, figure out an equitable outcome to the situation, then get back to serving the needs of priests, or get out. Priests have been put through hell, and they don't need to deal with egos or disordered personalities which now exist in the leadership of the coalition, especially in a president and vice president who threaten legal action against priests who disagree with their disordered actions. In the subsequent email, you will find my resignation from my positions as priestly assistant coordinator and property manager for the rectory in Indiana. End quote. So what is being alleged here is essentially corruption in the Coalition for Cancelled Priests going all the way to the very top of the organization. That would include Father James Altman. I'm curious what you have to say about this, because I know many of you are very, very big supporters of Father Altman. I will just say this much. I do find it unbelievably sad that this organization is falling apart in this way. And it's almost like the best example you could have for why it's good to have almost the way the SSPX model is. And I don't mean this in terms of its relationship with Rome or any of these things, but the Society of St. Pius X rarely owns its own property. Instead, the properties are owned and managed by laity. You'll find this, it's a good way to protect the SSPX against Rome and against other organizations, actually, when they're in the hands of laity, at least in countries where private property rights are respected. And I almost wonder if that would be a better model here for the Coalition for Cancelled Priests moving forward, because the Coalition for Cancelled Priests does incredibly important work. That cannot be denied. And unfortunately, you're now seeing this internal split where a priest, Father Lavell, the former face of the organization, when you said the Coalition for Cancelled Priests, his name and face were always associated with it. They attempted to make him homeless in the winter months. That's the allegation. I have reached out again to the Coalition for Cancelled Priests for their own response comment, and all they would do our only response I received from them was confirmation that Father Duval did in fact resign. That's it. And in my email to them, I explicitly asked for not just a confirmation, but also response statement, because I am interested in hearing and promoting both sides of the story here. So if you are from the Coalition for Cancelled Priests and you believe that the whole picture isn't being given out here, I did attempt to get your side of the story here. Feel free to email me with a statement. I will get it up much faster than I got this one from Father Duval. I gave ample time. Unfortunately, I didn't get much of a response from the Coalition for Cancelled Priests. So let me know what you thought of this in the comments, please. Please pray for everybody involved in this story. This is not a good news story at all. We, in a time of Bergoglian overreach and the crushing of tradition and of the faith in the name of some rampant form of secularism, we need every organization that can help our good priests, even if those good priests aren't so good as people, but still are trying to live the faith despite moral failings, as long as they're not really, really evil things that they're doing. We need everybody. Okay? We need all these organizations. Unfortunately, so please pray for everybody in all of this. Father Duval, Father Lavell, Father Altman, everybody on both sides of the story. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.